All right, welcome to the Business Roundtable Podcast. I am your host, David Carr of Steward Your Business. We have another great guest here this week, Ryan Chute. I'm super excited to have Ryan on here. You're going to get a totally different perspective on some things we've talked about marketing and branding, but I think you're going to get a whole different perspective here today. Welcome to the podcast, Ryan.
Hey, David, thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, no, super happy to have you here, because when we were talking, Ryan, we were preparing for this podcast about a month ago, and we were talking about some of the issues that you see, and we're getting into the meat of it today from ads and marketing and branding. And what I just thought was, yeah, this is a unique perspective in a way that maybe I haven't heard the same way, and I'm excited you to share that. But before we get into that, I liked folks to learn a little bit more about you and what brought you, Ryan, to Wizard of Ads and as a partner and leading this company. Because I think I like having what I call the origin story. What led you to, and why do you do what you do? And we're going to get into the weeds of it today. So, Ryan, if you don't mind, just take us back a little bit about your journey as a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I'm super blessed to be able to run an 8-figure agency today with the Wizard of Ads, helping companies grow their businesses. I'm a big proponent of marketing is far too important to be left to a marketing department, and like to look at things holistically. But life wasn't always that way. And in 2015 is when I met Roy Williams, and he's the Wizard of Ads. And he had a giant 16th century Spanish tower standing on the hill in Austin, Texas. And I went to a class of his after reading his books and his Monday morning memo for 20 years. And it was a really transformational moment for me. It was just one of those times when I just realized my life has been a grind. It has been just an absolute battle every single day, day in and day out, living transactionally in a friction-filled world. You know, it's I came from the gulags of retail, where you have bad bosses and immoral behavior, and everything is based on performance. It's feast and famine, and all of the challenges that come with that nature of business. And I spent time living around despicable acts as much as I have weaponized fear, shame, and guilt. And I was mimicking that behavior. I was a bad leader. I was a deadly manager. I was very proficient at what I did. I got results, but I got results with a stick, not a carrot. And ultimately, when I got to meet Roy, the perspective of brand is entrenched in relational thinking, which is entrenched in thriving nature and mindset. And it's really had me start reflecting on, this idea of what I was doing. I was getting results transactionally, but it was constantly changing. It was constantly guarding the vault. It was felt like I was being productive and successful in the aggregate, but really, to look back now, 10 years later now, since 2015, it's dramatic how much my life has changed to recognize the things that cause friction in a business, with customers, with coworkers, frankly, with ourselves, as individuals looking inward. And while I by no means have perfected it, I needed to do this to train myself as much as I needed to recognize that this is the thing that got in a lot of people's way, and can improve their lives as leaders.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why I wanted you to share a little bit about that, Ryan, because I as you know too, I lead from what I live, and that's what I want people to hear. Like, Ryan, you're living this out. This isn't just like, oh, I just came up with this. I mean, I've been going through this process, and And I really appreciate that. And that's why I love to have voices like yours on the podcast to share to those. Is like, okay, this is not just, Ryan didn't just do this overnight. This has been something he's been working on for years. And that's where you're going to be able to lean in and get some great insights from Ryan today on like, how can you shift? Like you said, just, I think people maybe take too loosely at times marketing and how we do this and how we get the message. I know I have. And then so having somebody like you, Ryan, give a different perspective and challenge us how we show up in our companies and how we're leading, and getting that messaging there is really important. So,
Yeah.
we're going to dive into that because, you're going to talk, I know, and I've had some other folks in sales, not so much in marketing, but recently on sales, but same kind of thing, how we can be manipulative and use these tactics that are not really, maybe they might be able to get some results in the short term, but this is not a legacy way that you go up and live. And
Yes.
I see so much today, and it's like, man, how can we do it better? How can we have greater influence, right? And make something that's really meaningful. And I think that's what you've been working on. And again, that's why I wanted to have on from Wizard of Ads and just in your background. And I really liked when I led with this episode of like you talked about friction. We talked a lot about that, and where there's friction, and meaning that things should be able to flow better. And how can we do that? How can we make it so that from my perspective, I'm looking at people, you're looking at the same thing with people, but how we're integrating the messaging, the ads, right? And I'm excited for you to share a little bit more about, how do we come up with a strategy
Mhm.
in branding versus just kind of throwing things at the wall, Ryan, and just trying to like, oh, what's the newest, the greatest thing, and so maybe just talk with us about, where you mentioned a little bit about this turning point where we talked about like you recognize you're the friction, and now we're like, no, I'm moving. I'm no longer the friction. I want to start thinking more forward thinking and how we're going to do this. And I want to reduce the friction. I don't want to be the bottleneck. Talk to us a little
Right.
bit about how can we start to help in marketing and branding, reduce the friction.
Yeah. It's think of it this way, maybe for the visual folks in the room, is removing friction from the flywheel. If
Mm,
if we think of the physics of friction and the physics of a flywheel and how we want to get it to go faster and build momentum and inertia, we have to take the rust off the flywheel. We have to make sure that the parts aren't in they're not causing friction, but they might be in tension with each other. So tension is important, but friction is not good.
That's
Right?
that's a great analogy, Ryan. Yeah, you need both. You need
You
you
do.
need the you have to have some tension in there, or the flywheel won't work.
Right.
Right?
It'll be sloppy and messy, and it won't get that speed up. And what we're talking about here is the speed is your profitability, right? How much can you make more money? And that's your flywheel going faster and accelerating your money mechanism. The resistance, the friction, that's all the expense to your business, both in money, effort, and time, because those resources are a drag if you put too much weight in the system. What I mean by that is if you have too many employees or too many systems or too many get out of jail free cards, what we call the weasel words at Wizard of Ads, right? You're creating friction that doesn't need to be there. Instead, you need to create an operation that eliminates as many of those get out of jail free cards as you can for both
Mhm.
employees and the customers.
Right. No, absolutely, Ryan. I mean, I think there is breaking that down and then coming up with a strategy. How do
Yeah.
we, rather than, and sometimes we make the mistake, like you said, of maybe throwing things, maybe making it more complicated. We're like, hey, that's not the right answer. Let's like slow it down a little bit, break it down, and I think like thinking forward, if you will. So how would what would, when we're looking at, so when you say this to Ryan, to me, I hear like, oh, I like the word holistic. How are we looking at this thing holistic versus just my little part here, my little part there? What does that actually mean, Ryan, to you and working with clients?
Yeah, one of the biggest things to recognize in businesses is that for years we've created silos, and that typically comes from corporate strategy. And that's mainly because you have a bunch of people who are absolutely terrified to lose their job and doing everything they can to protect it. So they make stupid decisions for the benefit of themselves under the guise of the greater good. What you're actually getting is watered down nonsense 9 times out of 10. And what we're really looking to solve here is, how do we make it great on all fronts? Well, when it comes to the brand culture and experience standpoint, this is something that my partner Ray Sagern taught me. One of the main reasons why I've become a Wizard of Ads partner was because of Ray, and he talks about your brand are the stories that we tell to the world to let them know what you stand for and stand against. And it's the culture that drives the experience that the customer is going to have. So it's crucial that our brand is in alignment with our culture is in alignment with our brand, and that indeed the culture is delivering on the experience. And where I took it from there was, the thing we need to focus on then first, the center of our strategy, needs to start with our culture. And the first person to do that is the person whose intentions matter. Right? The leader, the person who chose to start this thing and run it a certain way.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I as you know, Ryan, I work with companies and their teams, and what I found is oftentimes companies miss the mark by not really defining culture clearly. Their values are not clear, and this cascades in a lot of different ways. I mean, as an example, I had a insurance broker on the podcast, Ryan, and he was like, "I'm trying to go get you insurance, and you can't explain to me all of the things that you do. What do you essentially stand for? Give me your story narrative, because I'm trying to go to bat for you, but you can't explain this to me. You can't explain this to me. How are your team or your customers experiencing, right? Like you said, the external experience or internal experience,
right?" You know what? It's funny you say that, because it really does boil down to some really astoundingly obvious truths when you say them out loud, and they're not true or obvious until you just kind of say the obvious things. And that's that human beings, the brain is designed to cope. It is not designed to thrive and to think complex. It takes extra effort to do those things. As leaders, our job is to create an environment to make it astoundingly easy for people to do their jobs by doing the hard work for them up front, from curating your inventory and pricing to calculating your compensation package to leaning into internal motivators versus external motivators to heck, even how we measure people, right? And holding them accountable to the things they can control, not the things they can't.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So can you give me an example, I mean, of like a brand or one that you've worked with, Ryan, of like where they've lived this out? They've got that alignment of, the internal alignment that leads to that external resonance, where you've worked with somebody that got that right.
Yeah, there's a company in the Carolinas that is it has been doing a ton of work around making things easier for their salespeople so that they can make it easier for their customers. One of the things that I worked on with them about 4 months ago when we were at our annual retreat was the club membership that they have. Now, a club membership in a home service space, HVAC and plumbing, soon to be electrical, is a company that wants to be able to deliver perks and services to make sure that the customer's equipment stays maintained for the long term. Now, some people use that to weaponize against customers to make it a sales opportunity every time they show up, and other companies make it a true perk and really lean into taking care of club members before they take care of randos in the canoe, right? So at the end of the day, we want new customers to step into our family, but not everyone's going to be, part of our membership. And that's okay. We're looking for the people who want to do business the way we do business. So what can we do to make it so astoundingly easy for the customer to go, oh, I want to be a part of that?
Yeah.
Well, it starts with elevating the perks, minimizing the cost of the membership, making it just so astoundingly obvious that it's a no-brainer to have advantage of this thing, and then to be ultra generous well before it pays off, until such time as they need something because something is broken. That's how home services should work anyway.
Right. Yeah.
We shouldn't be going into people's houses and trying to find things that could be replaced or repaired without any necessary need. And these folks did that. Well, last month they had their largest month. They broke over $2 million in revenue.
Wow.
And 99% of their clients, 99% of their clients were club members.
Wow.
Now,
Ryan.
There's nobody else that's doing that in America today that I have heard.
No, I haven't heard that. I mean, most people are like you said, they're turned off by club things or membership because they feel like they're going to be upsold something else or whatever.
Come here so that I can take advantage of you. Oh, and by the way, when we go to do your maintenance, you're the first person that we're going to take advantage of and change the times on and disrespect your time and disrespect the fact that you had to go to work and we're just going to change the appointments and all this other stuff.
Yep.
When we recognize that, we're removing friction for the customer, which removes friction for the employee. And now what happens? There's a couple things that's happened, Dave, and you know this instinctively. One, the customers are going to be more compelled to buy. Two, the salespeople, whoever's selling it, feels like they're telling the truth and they're not betraying themselves.
Yep.
Membership goes through the roof and retains through the roof, and the customers don't go shopping anymore. They've already mentally checked out of the shopping game. They have a guy, right?
Yeah.
Now it's our job to maintain that reputation and that and that respect, and protect and defend that. What does that do? Accelerate growth, because the flywheel is now moving with a whole bunch of already people who have stuck up their hand and identified themselves as people who want to buy.
No, I think that's great. I mean, thinking forward like this, helping them get into place. As you talk through that and they're growing, that's awesome. I mean, their revenue is going up. But what I found, and I'd love to speak to this, Ryan, over time, you said it's not like it's a one-time thing, because you said like, hey, sometimes we get silos, and I think particularly when you get the salespeople versus the warehouse versus the ops, they start to separate again, and then now it's me against you. It's like, hey, you're selling more, now it's putting more pressure on us, vice versa. Talk about your insights where you've seen this kind of breakdown tribes, if you will.
Well, you get bad decisions from people who have their motivations, and motivations are traditionally coming from one, what the leadership will tolerate in an organization, but also what they're willing to ask for out of the departmental organizations. They want to have sales produce these results no matter what, right? It is come hell or high water, you're going to do this, and if you don't, then your job is at risk.
Yes.
Well, that's a real challenge that motivates the salesperson to say, sales manager, sales leadership, to do things and act a certain way. They're willing to do things that are more survival based, right? More hunting, more killing to get the job done, despite the fact that once you've killed off, your food supply, you've got no food left.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So instead of having an organization built on farming and agriculture thinking, they're building it off of a single food source of eat and kill, which is a cradle to grave instead of a life cycle renewable strategy. That comes with a different set of metrics. It's not as sexy, it's not as fast moving, it's not as high revenue as other companies who are exploiting people. But that's short-term thinking that only lasts a certain period of time. And that comes from shareholders, regardless of the structure of those shareholders, some more insistent than others that you either live up to your expectation or you disappear, because we're growing a monster to sell it quickly before all of that recourse comes back and haunts us. We need to have this thing gone. Not a great strategy for a long-term business like Essential Home Services.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you bring up a good point, Ryan, and I've had a number of folks on here that buy firms, and there's private equity. There's things that are drivers, but if you're the business owner, you've got that direct control, or that you're that team and the board, and what you're saying, Ryan. I think it's important to think about the long term. Yeah, there's all the things we can do to kind of know, game the system, if you will. But think, like you said, I really like how you said it. Like people are doing things if they really are in a place of fear, worry, anxiety, then they're going to do things that are, like you said, are they're short term decisions, not in the best. They're like they're trying to do that, but actually, it's even in their own best interest. Long term, it doesn't work. It's just. But you're bringing up this point of like, how can we change that? And I guess getting to the place of, again, living out values, and instead of being like, hey, these are short-sighted ones, let's think through this a little bit more strategic. And if we do this overall, you just gave a great example in this the business with the home services, is that we're going to create a greater legacy that all win. I think that's part of it, Ryan, that I hear when I work with them. Like, how do we all win together, create that? It's not like it's a me against you, or if you win, I lose kind of a thing, right? And that's right in business. We don't want our clients, our customers to ever feel like that, for sure.
But look, and a lot of industries do that. They celebrate the guy who, drove a business from nothing to $16 million and sold it for 6 to 10 times EBITDA, and they're celebrated as these geniuses. That's not success. That's just you gaming the system. You got in and out, you got your money, and you went on. Who didn't win? The employees didn't win. They didn't get a bunch of money, right? Maybe a very small select few did, right? Who didn't get the win? The customers, the ones who got taken advantage of, the ones who paid too much, the ones who are struggling to make ends meet as it is, and now they're pressed even further. Who doesn't win is the majority, for the sake of the minority, and that one person who did this thing is the celebrated soul. They don't impress me. The people who've impressed me over the years are the guys who went at this for 10, 15, 20 years, who grounded out and grew it and did what was right. They certainly sold. They certainly made lots of money. They certainly did all of the things that needed to be done to be a successful business. But they also respected those around them, including themselves. Most of these folks, they feel dirty afterwards, right? They're like 2 years afterwards, they look back and go, one of the worst things I ever did, because I had to move out of my community because their reputation is so bad. They can't look at their friends at church, and they can't look at their friends in the grocery store, and their employees all hate them, and they're despised, right? That's not a great, if that's what you define as a win, then congratulations. I'm not interested.
No, Ryan. So to your point, and that's why I would say somebody that wants to be different, like you said, Ryan, that we're targeting, folks that we want to help on this podcast are those that don't want to do that. They want it, but they're stuck. They're like, I want to do a better job at communicating messaging. Sometimes they just need somebody like you, Ryan, to come and give them a different perspective and understanding of like, how can we do this again? Like I said, in a holistic way, live our values with integrity, right? And having persuasion and influence in a positive way, in a way that is not manipulative, isn't a way for a short-term gain. But we see this. I see this often on people that are trying to get on TikTok or Amazon. They're trying to like influence, and they're trying to sell things, and and they're just trying to make a quick buck, if you will, and there's not a long-term strategy, I guess. Right, Ryan?
Absolutely. And there is short-term and long-term goals. Nothing wrong with those things. It's nothing wrong to go after those goals and chase them. There's nothing wrong with persuasion. There's nothing wrong with selling. There's nothing wrong with closing a deal. There's nothing wrong with making profit. All of these things are virtuous things. In fact, I think the highest level of service is to make the sale, not lose the sale, if there's an ethical sale there to be made. It really does boil down to, what are we actually doing this for? And this is exactly why a company can stand out for a short term. Getting attention is easy. Pretty much any idiot can get attention. Holding interest is really hard, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, I see that most of these companies have somewhere between an 18-month and a 3-year 4 years at the longest life cycle, if they're operating within nothing but short-term framework, that they also have to pay out the butt to get there, because they're chasing the today customer. They're not chasing the tomorrow customer. They're not recruiting for the same either. All of the same truths that we have about customers are the exact same truths about people, about ourselves, about our employees, about our wives and husbands and kids and neighbors. The same motivations play no matter where you are, and it really boils down to far more a world of duality than it does these vast archetypes that we've constructed in our heads to make it more complicated than it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
We're either surviving or we're thriving, and we have to meet people where they're at. The relational business happens in thriving mode. The surviving business happens in the transactional business happens in survival mode. This is your employee who wants more money, right? Or wants more time with their family, or wants less stress or exhaustion coming out of their job each day. They want energy at the end of the day. They don't want burnout. And
Yep.
Our essential service providers, our plumbers, electricians, HVAC technicians, our nurses, our doctors, they're all run ragged to the limits of burnout and beyond. And
Yep.
that is a part of the friction that we have to pay attention to. And ultimately, people are going to be a lot more bought in for the bigger play than they are for the short-term buck, if they see that they're moving in the right direction and serving people at the highest level, which is precisely what this business is meant to do. It's an essential service. It's there to protect people.
Right. Absolutely. No, I love that, Ryan. So, I mean, as you described that, to me, it sounds like if you're living that out, moving in that direction, that's an ideal person that can work with you, Ryan, of like, hey, come to you. Walk me through a little bit of like, okay, where you find like the business owner, the company is in a position, like describe to me a little bit, like what is an ideal like person where they're going to really benefit, Ryan, from leveraging your expertise, somebody like you, Ryan, that can they take them to the next level. What are the characteristics that you see?
The characteristics I see consistently, David, these are people who already have done an exceptional job at growing their businesses and gotten so far and then hit a ceiling. They're bumping their heads up against this natural demand ceiling, and they don't know what to do next. They've tried it all and nothing's worked. And they're kind of spinning their wheels in the mud and trying to figure out how to get out of the rut. This comes traditionally with a bit of humility, and it's not because we're looking for soft people. We're not. We're looking for strong people, looking for solutions from people who know what they're talking about and are going to do something differently than what they classically hear everywhere else about transactional solutions and offers and promos and discounts and digital this and digital that, and frankly, radio this and billboard that and all the other silly things that you can do. None of that stuff matters without one solid, stable foundation of operations, without happy customers already, they're doing the right things, and with a solid reputation that we can go from a customer liking them and knowing them to loving them, right? Attaching emotion to the brand to shift them to the next level. Well, it doesn't work if you're awful, right? So if you're just right, so what we're looking, I don't care how much money you make, I don't care how big you are or how small you are, I care that you're a good person, and then that you're trying hard and moving forward. We know that a $6 million operator has no clue how to run a $20 million operation. They'll figure it out if they're a good person, right? And we're going to help them, and other people are going to help them that we know that we can point them towards and say, these people always help these people figure that thing out.
Yes.
So the support's there, right?
Yes.
It's really about recognizing that you don't know what you don't know. And gosh, it would be awfully nice if I realized that thing that's in my blind spot is something that some old guy who calls himself a wizard knows what the heck it is and is going to call it out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you know, we're going to make sure that if everybody's listening here or you're watching us on YouTube, wherever the case might be, we're going to make sure that you guys are able to connect with Ryan, connect them on LinkedIn. We'll put links in there. But I think it's really important, Ryan, because I get them every day almost, where I'm getting pitched something and tell me about my business and how they can help me in my business. But they haven't had any relationship, right? They haven't talked about anything about what's going on, what's your current strategy, what's working, what's not working, where are you hitting the wall, where's your blind spot. It's just like if it's like they've got a hammer and everything is a nail. So they're like, I'm
Everything's
just gonna hit everything, right? I'm like, I
that's
can't believe people are still doing this today,
that's
Ryan.
that is the biggest mistake that is perpetuated in the marketing industry, is that 99% of marketing companies are not marketing companies as much as they are channel salespeople. They're trying to sell you what they do for production. We're not that. We'd actually don't even sell you what we produce. You pay us a consulting fee, and then we go and negotiate your mass media for you if that's what you're using, and we write your creatives for you. But that's like, if we write more ads, we don't get paid more. We only get paid more if you grow. Yeah. So the fundamental shift of we don't have anything to sell you and we're 100% media agnostic immediately puts us in a different world and role than a company that's selling you pay-per-click or SEO or something where they're dependent on that sale and the output of that, the production houses of the world. Some of them fantastic, and some of them kind of not great. But everyone who's run through a digital marketer course online figures that they're a digital marketer and can save your world and change your life. And a very small group of people can actually do that.
Right. Well, and we started out at the beginning of the podcast here, talking about your own journey with your influence of Ray and how he helped you in getting mentors. I have the same thing. It's a mentors and it's a long play. And so that's why I want to focus to listen here to Ryan today of like, okay, here's another guy that I can trust, that I can at least, have a conversation and see that he's doing the work, living from preaching and sharing, if you will, in the world. And makes a big difference. I think, like you said, Ryan, there's a lot of people out there that they think they're doing. And I just want to, hopefully, if you're that person, we're trying to call you up in a good way. If you happen to be on, I don't think they listen to this podcast, but if you happen to be, listen and learn that you can, look for the relationship. I like what you said, Ryan. This is why I said relationship over opportunity. Build the relationship. Who are you first? And then the opportunities will come. But, we all do get stuck along the way. And wherever are you at in your journey, Ryan, you're saying, here, look, we can give you a different perspective. And I like how you said we're agnostic. I'm the same thing. I have a lot of tools in the toolbox. I'm like, I got to hear where you're at. What is working and what isn't working.
Right.
People side, you're saying, hey, let me look at wherever the market is and the people that you're targeting and what is, I don't know. We have to find out where are the people at.
Yeah.
What are they responding to, right, Ryan?
Yeah. And most of them have a toolbox of the channels they sell, and basically everything is a variant of a hammer, where we're looking at everything, and sometimes the hammer is the right thing to use, and sometimes it's a pipe wrench or a screwdriver or a welding torch. We don't know until we figure that out, but it's the difference between rudimentary architecture and craftsmanship, and that makes all the difference in the world, because there's nothing more powerful in this world than words.
Wow. Yeah, that's well said, Ryan. I know we're getting to the end of the podcast. We could definitely go further because there's a lot of stuff we're getting into here. But I think just that last statement, you said the words that we use are very powerful. They can do great, positive things. They can also do things that are very damaging and very undermine our influence. And so as we're wrapping up, Ryan, I want to give you an opportunity to share with our listeners. And I've covered a lot of different things, but just maybe a key thing that they can reflect on, think about, take action on themselves to evaluate where they're at in their culture, in their branding, wherever you want to bring up, Ryan. And we'll make sure you guys can follow up, link into Ryan. We're going to put all of his links in the show notes. But just some last thoughts, some things you want to impart to our listeners, Ryan.
Yeah, all of this starts for leaders and senior executives that are listening to this and CEOs and whatnot, it all starts with ourselves. It all starts with our internal mindsets. And very often we're the first ones to forget that we're people too. It's like that old movie Soylent Green where people are being made into crackers. Yeah, it's like, right.
We're people.
It's made of people, he screams.
Yeah.
And don't forget that you're a person too, and that your mindset matters, because it's your commander's intent that's leading this. It's what you tolerate and don't tolerate. And when you start to see the things that are a bit in your blind spot, and you go, oh, that caused a ripple of effect of slowing this flywheel down. I smooth that out. I get the rust off that flywheel. I grease that wheel. I get the bearings right in this wheel. All the people is what I envision these bearings to be. Then you have the right fits to move forward smoothly and faster, build the inertia, and reduce the cost, the friction that goes along with that. You want to accelerate growth. You want to increase your wealth. You want to eventually exit your business, all at the optimal scenario where you've got to do something about that, not just hope something might happen.
Yes. And Ryan's one that can help you along the journey. Ryan, I just want to say thanks for coming on the podcast today and sharing a little bit of wisdom and just time with our listeners. Really appreciate having you today.
I appreciate being asked and having the opportunity to share.
Absolutely. Well, y'all, thanks for listening in here. As we're wrapping up the podcast, the drill. We'd love to have you share it, like it, subscribe, all that good stuff. Any comments you leave, we'll make sure that Ryan gets them. Please leave them here, wherever you're listening to the podcast, on your favorite podcast platform, YouTube, or following us on LinkedIn. And we look forward to having you back again at the next time of our weekly podcast, Business Roundtable. Until then, be well. Thanks everybody for listening. Take care.